left over?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yep. I think my interpretation would be if there's something listed on those line items that was approved by the delegation way back initially, if those line items went over, we could take money out of the capital, out of the contingency fund.
Yeah.
As you know, I tried to get the truck out of the contingency fund, and they wouldn't allow that to be done. I still think that was a possibility because it was earmarked for the new nursing home. We probably wouldn't need the truck if it wasn't for the nursing home.
Right. And then
They spent an hour and a half talking about something that didn't make any difference at all. Because if the money that is left over from the project ends up going into the reserve account for the county, that's the same place that any money that is left over in department budgets goes. So you're essentially taking the money from the same pocket. It doesn't, you know, it seemed like an awful long time to talk about nothing.
Right.
So,
They tend to do that.
they tend to do that.
Whether or not we pay this off as the agreed schedule originally, or we can pay it off a little sooner because we had leftover money we can apply to principal, is the overall cost of the loan going to be the same?
Yeah.
Okay, so paying it off sooner, we don't save.
Yeah, it's not paying it off sooner, it's just
Okay.
using those funds to make the
It's not a
payment.
mortgage.
Yeah, no, I understand, I just,
Because we can't pay it sooner,
right,
the type of,
okay.
People who bought the bonds
Expect a certain return, yeah, yeah,
and they're gonna get that return.
yeah.
Okay.
okay? That's it?
Yeah, we'll open it up for public comments. If you got any comments on anything that's happened so far today?
I have a question for Kathy Gary. Commissioner Solomon was looking for checks for those.
Yeah, we found them last Wednesday, or last
Yeah, we did.
Tuesday. They were stuck in some.
They were on my desk.
Because
Yeah.
they were still
Yep.
on your desk.
Yep.
Because I didn't sign it too.
Okay, I can give you a copy of there was 3 checks, I think, like postage, and they were
Yeah.
small amounts. So
Yeah.
I'll give you a
okay.
copy of what those were. Yeah, they were found.
Is it, you said just public comment?
Public comment, yep.
If, one of the things I heard in the beginning, and in public comment at the beginning of the thing, is that one of the reasons that the commissioners put forward for, or at least Commissioner Kennedy put forward for not wanting to give raises to county employees is the federal situation, and whether or not the people should get raises isn't my point. It's trying to apply the situation of the federal government towards making your decision on how to behave in the county is kind of ridiculous. I mean, you've got, these aren't the same things. My reaction to what the federal government is doing isn't going to predicate the way I feel how
I hope
county
not.
government
I hope we don't follow the federal government.
how county government is handled. To use that as a reason, I can understand why people are upset about that, if they are, at least one person is upset, is using, well, the federal employees aren't getting it. It's just a ridiculous argument. Whether or not people should get a pay raise based upon the fact is, well, other citizens and workers in Carroll County aren't making more money, they're taking pay cuts, they're losing. That's a fine argument if that's your argument, but the federal government?
I just made a statement, a general statement, that the federal government employees has a pay freeze for several years.
Right, and it's
These are
irrelevant
bad
to county.
economic times. People are losing their homes. They cannot afford to pay the taxes.
Right,
They are
but the-
struggling. So I think we need to follow that instead of giving every year pay raises.
Yeah.
It doesn't go to specific department or a group or that they have to check, oh, the federal officers make more. It's just a general statement. I talk to people in the county, they're losing their homes. They cannot afford to pay the taxes. And they asking me, did you give pay raises there to the employees?
Well, that's a fine argument.
That is a general statement what
Yeah.
I make.
That's a fine argument, but relating it to the state of the federal government and how that's being handled, it just doesn't relate to the county. Thank you very much.
Roughly, there are still 2 unions that have not negotiated, the nursing home and the jail. Supposed to meet tomorrow, snowstorm coming. I don't know if they're going to meet or not. So it won't be decided until probably well into January. But everybody would be getting roughly $624 increase with the 30 cents.
Right.
Okay.
Is that truck gonna be able to handle another snowstorm?
Well, the truck is supposed to be delivered within 2 weeks, I think Will said to here a week ago. So we'll get by this snowstorm, but maybe not the next one. He does have the snow blower. He found that that worked quite well and saved a lot of time and effort, having that already purchased, so. Yes, Mr.
I
Albee?
guess if we're gonna get into the philosophical and theoretical, we should be having Rob Horace approach our commercial suppliers with the same notion that people can't pay their taxes, people are losing their houses, people can't find employment. So why are you, Cisco Food System, increasing the cost of the food that we have to buy to supply the county? Why are you, gas company, increasing the cost of gas? Why are you, fuel company, increasing the cost of fuel? The idea that somehow this operation is less worthy than Cisco Foods, or less worthy for an increase than, you know, the pharmaceutical companies that provide drugs for us is ridiculous. It's specious. I mean, obviously, the workers who do work at the county are just as worthy for pay increases if they're deserving them, or as anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So whether they're in the private sector or the public sector, they are workers. The real reason I raised my hand, though, is that we're now coming up to 1 year from when we were supposed to have had our Chronos system up and running completely. That system, aside from the fact that it does our payroll, is a significant management tool.
Mm-hmm.
And I've been approached by a couple of department heads who want to use that system as a management tool and can't, because it's still not completely installed.
Say this again, who wants to?
Well, I'm not
Some
gonna name
county
names,
department?
But I've had department heads from your county approach me, asking me why do I think the Chronos system's not up and running completely?
Why, how do they know whether it's up and running or not?
Because they can't use it as a management tool. Are we using it?
Yes, we are.
Are we running our payroll through it?
I'm not 100% sure about
I'm
that.
100% sure
I
that
know
we're not.
I know they are still checking to
So
make
we're-
sure that it is correct.
We're a year out from
Yeah, I
installation.
understand, yeah.
At what point in time we're gonna spend some significant management time getting that done?
Mhm.
And you don't have to, obviously, it could be considered a rhetorical question, but I think
Yeah.
it's important.
And I think the question has come up in the past, how much is that going to save us?
Well, it's not gonna
Whether
save us
the
anything-
savings.
It's not gonna save us anything until we get it done.
Well, it's not going to save us too much, but it is going to get people to work on time, and it will follow or track their time that they spend working.
You'll find that it will save you considerable amounts of money just in the allocation of vacation, sick,
Right.
and personal time.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Yep, Mr. Babson.
As you know, Mr. Chairman, I've asked 2 or 3 times during the year, has this program been up and running, and always the same answer is that we're running a parallel system now. But I would have to agree with former Commissioner Albee. It was sold to us on the basis that when it was up and running, it would save us money.
Mhm.
If for no other reason, people wouldn't be taking extra vacation time that they didn't,
That's true.
that hadn't. And, you know, it just seems.
As far as I know-
Continually, this county, whenever it does a project of any sort, falls behind. We've got the, we got the,
Not every time.
the boilers out here, you know, they were gonna be in last June. We were looking for a place to keep them because they were gonna be in June. Now it's January and we're not gonna get them in for the winter when we need them. Kronos went in a year ago when it isn't running.
Yeah. Regarding the boilers, we were ready to go with them until we heard that because we receive federal dollars for the piping and the furnaces, they have to approve the wording and so forth, sending out the RFP to do the work.
So
That
you're-
was one holdup on that, on their part.
so-
The rest of it was our fault.
Okay. So basically, the part about changing the wording was only a very small portion of the
Well, it
7
held-
or 8 months that it's
It
behind.
held us up by at least a month.
Okay.
Bonapage and Stone was ready to go to do the work. Whether
When are
they'll
you
submit a
gonna
bid or
open up-
not, I don't know.
When are you gonna open up the installation quotes on Friday?
They're due in Friday. We will probably open them up on Monday at the delegation, after the delegation meeting.
And when will the decision be made to whom you're gonna give the contract?
Hopefully Monday.
You don't think on a project that size that maybe you shouldn't rush into it? It's been only 8 months and you get a quote.
It depends on what the bids, how the bids come in.
I'd hate to see you say, because we gotta get this thing in January, that we'll make our decision today. There's a lot more that goes into a bid than just what the price is when it comes in. You know, we don't make a habit around here of, that I can see of checking when we go out for a bid and get a quote, of checking anybody's references. Have they got a history of late finishing? Do they had any problem with stuff missing when they worked? I mean,
You
there's all
heard-
sorts of things.
Mr. Bastion, you heard from both Rob Horace and Sandy McKenzie that they've researched their contract.
Yes, they did, and that's good.
Go ahead.
I mean, these broad brush statements, I appreciate that Representative Babson is generally a more reasonable person, but every single bid on that new nursing home was completely researched.
Yeah.
And I believe, and I think I'm right, that Bonnet, Page and Stone is going to review whatever bids you get for this installation of the pellet boiler.
Not necessarily.
So you're not,
They've pulled out.
so you,
They may be one submitting a bid.
okay. Because historically, or during the project, they would have reviewed
They would have
all
done
those
that.
aspects.
That's correct. And
Back
they
to-
did it for the nursing home.
Back to the Kronos just for a second, but you gotta know that Representative McCarthy and probably a couple of the other brain surgeons are going to spend a significant amount of time on the overtime issue at the nursing home. Without the documentation that Kronos could provide,
Mhm.
Sandy McKenzie's gonna have to create a response to that. You know, you've taken that tool away from them.
Mhm. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, I don't think this is any place to call any elected official a brain surgeon. I don't think that's called for, Chip. They won their election, they're supported by their people, and to come in here and do that is just not fair, it's not respectful, and you should apologize for it.
I apologized back in January for saying ahead of time exactly what this delegation was going to do.
All right,
They did it.
let's not talk about the delegation. That can be done on Monday. Mr. Brown.
To Mr. Alby's point that everything of the new nursing home was fully investigated?
That's right, by Bonnet, Page and Stone, and they came in with a
Well,
recommendation.
how about
Acceptable.
the fact of this illustrious magical pellet boiler that we're receiving from the federal government, when no one investigated the $300,000 cost to install it? So I wouldn't call that everything being fully investigated, because someone clearly dropped the ball on that one.
We knew it had to be done. It's being put out for bid.
But not until after the fact.
Not,
That's not true at all.
Yeah.
That's not true at all.
How is it not true?
Because we knew when we accepted the grant money for the piping, when we accepted the grant money for the boiler, that those monies were just for the hard goods.
yeah.
We knew all the way along, from before we submitted the bid for the grant, we knew that it was going to be limited to just the hard material, the boiler itself and the piping itself.
Then why the surprise of the $300,000 to hook it up?
I don't think there was any surprise, there wasn't any
The
surprise.
surprise
on my
was the
end.
cost, not that it had to be hooked up.
Well, again, I don't think it was fully investigated. Because if it was
Okay.
fully investigated, the $300,000 would have been brought up prior to when the surprise hit the fan.
Yes, I agree.